you're going to be sorely disappointed, because if clickbait was an amendment, this is it. Okay, I cannot believe it. And there's so much more going on here. Now we really see the target of everything, I think, really the linchpin for her lawsuit, the person that she went after. We have to discuss Isabella Ferrer, all that coming up right now.
I've had to take a real honest look at the ways that I've unconsciously been hurting the women in my life. And it's ugly. My wife told me that I had been acting in a certain way that hurt her and not correcting it.
So let's see how Candace breaks this down for us today. I don't think you guys want to miss this one.
Because yesterday we covered this, anticipating this amendment to drop, and we spoke about their SNL appearance, and I just kind of gave my feedback, that my professional opinion, that it was Ryan who had called this shot, that it was very obvious now that we know his brand of narcissism. I feel like we all deserve like PhDs in psychology by the end of this. And since we were able to connect the way his teacher said that he believes he can act his way out of anything and make people fall in love with him, I said yesterday on the show, 100% Ryan was the one who put this line in here. Not SNL, not Tina Fey, not Blake Lively, but Ryan. And sure enough, some amazing mommy sleuth sends me a link yesterday, which you guys don't forget, you can always email me tips, info@CandaceOwens.com. And she says, check out this broadcast on an Australian radio show called Fifi, Fev, and Nick for Breakfast, literally a Melbourne, Australia station, where they had a guy who's been with SNL for like 25 years. His name is Cue Card Wally. He literally holds the cue cards for SNL. And he was just opening up with them in a friendly conversation about how exciting hosting that 50th anniversary was. And at the very end of the conversation, Cue Card Wally gets asked about that line. Ryan Reynolds jumping up and making a joke about the Justin Baldoni situation, and take a listen to what Cue Card Wally had to say.
Now, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively have been in the news a lot, and Ryan Reynolds, we want to know, was that an improv or was it scripted, his little piece he did?
That was actually, he had a different line in rehearsal, and he pitched that to replace it. So that was his idea to do it.
It was Ryan's idea. I just don't know. I feel like we deserve something. We deserve an award for just sniffing that out. Like, he is a true thoroughbred narcissist. Like, he truly believes that just give me a line, let me get in front of the audience, people will remember how much they love me. And by the way, tons of publications, we're not going to get into them at this moment because we've already covered that SNL appearance, saying that many of the people in the room were uncomfortable. They were uncomfortable. I guess they were aware of the hypocrisy of SNL kind of standing on this ground of no bullies for years, and then suddenly hosting Blake and Ryan when people could read their text messages bullying Justin Baldoni. It didn't serve them to have them there. And of course, it would have been him that insisted upon walking on the red carpet and smiling and trying to look happy. And I will say, Blake Lively looked uncomfortable. There were various moments where I was like, she does not look like she is comfortable. She is very aware that the public does not like her right now. But in case you felt even a modicum of sadness for her, you can just go ahead and wipe it away, because when we get further into this complaint, you're going to realize that she's not being held captive by Ryan Reynolds, okay? They're both narcissists, and the way that she executed her plan against Justin Baldoni by using the cast of characters around Justin Baldoni, like Isabella Ferrer and Liz Plank. She was involved. We're going to get to that. But first, let's go through this nothing burger of an amendment. I'll take you through the relevant parts. The first thing is how absolutely embarrassed I was as a female to read it, okay? They really are the strategy here for her lawyers, while Brian Friedman is delivering point after point after point, followed by evidence with no emotion in the documents. They're just girl bossing it. They're just like, wear your florals. We're going to file an amendment. It's going to be cute. We're going to give you so much emotion. It's going to feel good. Forget the facts. How do you feel? Truly, that's what it is. It is a display of like a hyper stereotype of what it means to be a woman. That's how I felt reading this. I was like, give me teeth. Give me the facts. I don't care about the feelings. It just starts with straight feelings, okay? In the introduction, it opens up by being like, the way that Justin Baldoni has represented himself in the past, really, we're just going to set the stage as if they're writing a script and they're not filing a document in court. This is actually the language from the introduction. It reads this. In public, Mr. Baldoni gave the appearance of taking responsibility for the fact that he had, quote, unconsciously been hurting and silencing women in his life, and implored men to be man enough to, quote, shut the hell up and listen to women. He claimed that he wanted to end toxic masculinity, acknowledging his own toxic behavior by admitting that, quote, there is a woman or two that I in some way made uncomfortable by saying something or doing something that was chauvinistic or sexist. There is 1,000,000% probability that this exists, pardon. Okay. And he said that he wanted to say that he was sorry and that he would do better. Okay. Just so you know what that's a reference from, just so you understand how hysterical female that this filing is. This has nothing to do with the lawsuit, has nothing to do with anything that Justin Baldoni has ever done. Rather, they decided to go back and find a TEDx talk that Justin Baldoni gave 5 years ago about how he was able to better his relationship with his wife. So I'm going to show you what they're quoting from. Again, published in 2017. Actually, I think I'm girl mathing it. That would be more than 5 years ago, okay? That would be 6-7 years ago, okay? Take a listen.
I've had to take a real honest look at the ways that I've unconsciously been hurting the women in my life. And it's ugly. My wife told me that I had been acting in a certain way that hurt her and not correcting it. Basically, sometimes when she would go to speak, at home or in public, I would just cut her off mid-sentence and finish her thought for her. It's awful. The worst part was that I was completely unaware when I was doing it. It was unconscious. So here I am doing my part, trying to be a feminist, amplifying the voices of women around the world, and yet at home, I am using my louder voice to silence the woman I love the most. So I had to ask myself a tough question. Am I man enough to just shut the hell up and listen?
So that's what they thought. They were like, we got him. We found this thing from 7 or 8 years ago on TEDx, and we're going to quote it as if it has anything to do with this lawsuit, as if it could be evidentiary for anything that we are alleging. Have they forgotten themselves? You are alleging that he conspired behind the scenes to launch a smear campaign, okay? You're not writing a script. You're not driving me into your narrative by using obscure quotations from a TEDx talk that he gave almost a decade ago. So this is how it opens, okay? Let's go back because it doesn't finish because they're not done mining 2017. Then they reference his words. They go, Mr. Baldoni echoed this narrative while marketing the film, and that in an interview on CBS, before the 1,000,000% probability that it exists, they're actually pulling that line from a Glamour magazine article where he sat down and spoke about how he wanted to end toxic masculinity. Please peep the date on this, you guys, 2017, okay? They are pulling quotations from a 2017 article as the opening to everything. Then they attach it to now by saying he echoed this narrative while marketing the film, okay, going back to the lawsuit, and they say in an interview on CBS discussing the release of the film on August 7, 2024, he claimed, quote, I want men to stop asking the question, why do women stay? I want men to take accountability. I want men to hold other men accountable. Now, again, they're just pulling this clip out of obscurity. So what are we to assume that he's speaking about? Well, it turns out he's speaking about his character, Reynold, and they're asking him a question in the context of domestic violence, which is what the movie is about. Here is that clip, which they think is a great aha moment. We've got Justin Baldoni. Take a listen.
What do you want men to take away from this film?
I want men, first of all, I want men to stop asking the question, why do women stay?
Yeah.
Right? I want men to take accountability. I want men to hold other men accountable. And in this particular film, I want men to go to the theater and in some way see a version of themselves. You know, you have two very different characters. Both of them, in Atlas and Reynold, have had past trauma. One handles it very different than the other. And my other hope is that the men who have not done the work, to heal, if they see bits of themselves in Reynold, have a chance to step back and say, you know what, I don't want to blow up my life. I don't want to hurt the person I love the most. I need to get help. I need to feel all these things that I've buried so deep down so that it doesn't explode on somebody that I love. And hopefully that can create some compassion and empathy and make the world a safer place.
So it's unbelievable. They are being so wildly manipulative and dishonest, as they have been since the beginning of this entire process, that they are literally mining clips on the internet, taking them out of context so that they can produce a narrative that reads like a script to us right off the bat. Okay, if you're reading that and you don't realize the context, he's talking about Ryle, he's talking about a different character in the book, and he's being asked a question about if men see themselves in Ryle, who is a person who physically abuses a woman, what do you want them to get from this movie? Okay, it doesn't get better from there, by the way, just to be clear. Let's now move on to point 6 of this, because this is where it gets interesting. Again, it's the way they use language. It's just so wildly manipulative. 6 in this lawsuit says the dangerous climate of threats, harassment, and intimidation fueled by the defendant's retaliation campaign has required Ms. Lively to alter her personal and professional life and to take steps to protect innocent bystanders rather than exposing them to further harm. So a couple of things here. I don't know how her professional and personal life was altered. It didn't look that way to me when she was posing on the red carpet with her husband and mocking the situation, but let's go with it. The reason why she's setting this up is she says, now I have to take steps to protect innocent bystanders rather than exposing them to further harm, because she's now using this to explain away why no one's joining in on her lawsuit, okay? They're setting that up right at the beginning. Essentially, no one's gonna join in, but just so you know, this is to protect them. I'm gonna explain to you why that's absolutely BS. It goes on and reads, thus, this amended complaint does not refer to certain witnesses by name, nor does it provide screenshots of their text messages. Importantly, however, these witnesses have given Ms. Lively permission to share the substance of their communications in this amended complaint as contained herein, and they will testify and produce responsive documents in the discovery process. Okay, let's just pause to make sure everybody understands what's happening here, because they think we are so stupid, okay? I'm not gonna include them in here because I'm gonna protect them. But down the line, I'm gonna subpoena them and force them against their will, which means that they are not willing participants and that you don't have their support, because the reality is you can compel them to testify, okay? And you cannot, when you compel them to testify, they're gonna have to hit the stand and people are gonna have to be aware of exactly who they are. So what you're saying is, which is what we already had sniffed out, me, the TikTokers, the Be Betters, the Stephanie with the Deets, all of the scoops we got was that you tried to force their hand behind the scenes to get involved in your dirty little campaign. They said no, and now you're trying to, well, put it in florals. Wear your florals. I'm gonna make it sound pretty. This is about protecting them until I have to freaking physically drag them to court via subpoena and show text messages. And in case you want me to also sum up why that point is absolute BS, it's because, which we'll get to later, we already showed you that her team was leaking complaints that she says that she has and trying to get them to run it. And they make it very clear who she's referring to every step of the way. It's very easy to deduce, okay? When she writes in her CRD complaint, as she did write in her CRD complaint, that a young actress who was meant to play an underage Lily Bloom, oh, she must really be protecting her, guys. Who could it be? Were there multiple young actresses who played young Lily Bloom? Why do you lie like this, Blake? Why? Why do you do this? Do you understand? You are not smarter than the internet. You didn't protect anybody. You came this close to saying their names because you wanted people to know exactly who you were talking about, okay? You then tried to leak HR complaints, which made it very clear exactly who you were talking about in each instance, Jenny Slate and Isabel Ferreira. And now you're trying to pretend here that you just want to protect them. You just want to protect them. Okay, Blake, we're with you. We're actually not with you at all. Let's jump to point 15 because the timeline here is important. One of the things that they are always doing, and this is why I loved what Brian Friedman did, and this is how I knew instantly he was telling the truth, is create a timeline. Otherwise, it's confusing. Not everyone's going to be a psycho like Candace Owens and Marcos at Be Better and go line for line and create a timeline, right? Not everyone's going to be a psycho like Candace Owens and Steph with the Deets. So you can easily confuse the public by just inserting facts and not actually weighing against, allowing them to weigh it against a concrete timeline that makes that fact somehow irrelevant, okay? So 15 is an example of that. She writes, As a result of guild strikes, production of the film shut down on or about June 14th. In the midst of that shutdown, on October 13th, 2013, Ms. Lively confided in a text to a female cast member that she was, quote, dreading going back to our film. I keep getting hits of experience in really upsetting ways. The female cast member expressed empathy for Ms. Lively and confirmed similar feelings. Okay, well, so that kind of occurred after it becomes apparent to us that you had sort of hatched a plan, okay? Just a couple of weeks before you sent your no more letter. This occurred after Ryan Reynolds had already posted in July for Sandra Bullock's birthday, intimacy recorder. You guys had already hatched the plan. We've sniffed that out. So to now learn that in October, you're trying to create evidence and trails. And I even texted this person and said that I felt this way. And she was empathetic, as women are. Women lie to each other all the time on the internet, everywhere in life, no matter what. We pretend like, oh, I totally understand. It's our natural, compassionate way. But we have to admit that a lot of times when we're being compassionate, we lie, okay? When someone, like if a woman has a bad breakout, we're always like, it doesn't look that bad. Even if it looks terrible, we say that because we want her to feel good, right? That's what we're in. It's our art form. We want somebody to feel good because they are our friend, okay? But please don't try to insert that as evidence. I said in October, after me and Ryan were already doing evil things and mocking things publicly, that I didn't feel good about going back to set. And that's evidence. Somebody was empathetic towards me. Get out of my face, okay? Now let's get down to point 17, because this just makes entirely no sense. I now think that her lawyers are just used to these sort of Me Too situations, because Me Too became a shakedown operation for a while where you didn't even need good lawyers. You just needed men who didn't want to go through the court system and the women who were saying, well, we're going to come at you with sexual harassment and ruin your lives. And I'm thinking these are the kinds of lawyers and PR people that she has in her corner, because this is not an intelligible document, okay? And point 17 makes that clear. Here's what she's alleging. She says, and this is her defense of saying, I was never trying to take over the film. This really was about sexual harassment. She puts in bold, none of the requested protections, her 17 points that she wanted, were tied in any way to Ms. Lively's creative input in the film. And they were made months before any discussions regarding the cut of the film. Oh, so you're saying you made the allegations first and then you tried to make input and change the direction of the film. Are you saying that the chicken had to come before the egg? Yes, sweetie, the chicken had to come before the egg. Obviously, it was because you made these demands and 17 points, which made no sense, and which Brian Freeman went through and thoroughly debunked these points. We've read the messages, sweetheart, okay? We know you said no to the intimacy coordinator. We know that it made no sense that you were then saying there must be an intimacy coordinator on set at all times. And so yes, first you're gonna make the sexual harassment threat, and then you're gonna go, as you guys did, and they proved in the background, I want this, I want that. If I don't get what I want, I'm not going to show up. He has to be put into the basement. So why are you bolding that? Get somebody brighter. Seriously, tell me your budget. I could be hired. What is your budget? Like, what is your budget? I'll do it for you, because this was just completely nonsensical. Okay. Then number 18 is great because they bold another point, but don't bold the point that comes just before it. And we've again seen this debunked by Brian Friedman. She's basically saying that once we sent our demands to Wayfair and shut down production, remember, they emailed them in in November of 2023. And they said, she's not coming back to set unless you agree to all of this. And this is non-negotiable. So it was a hostage situation. Essentially, they were going to lose their entire investment in the film, have to find a different actress, or they had to agree to everything, which is why before that bolded line in which they say they agreed and said, we find most of these not only reasonable, but also essential for the benefit of all parties involved, she forgets to bold the part where they say, although our perspective differs in many aspects. Because they disagreed with everything she said. They pushed back initially and said, what are you talking about? We've had an intimacy coordinator. You've been in touch with the intimacy coordinator. You didn't want to meet with this intimacy coordinator. But now we're in a hostage situation, and you're asserting that this proves somehow, because you said this is not negotiable and because they agreed to it, that they're guilty of a crime other than trying to salvage their investment. Then we get to 24, where she tries to essentially show messages, which she's done before, between the PR agents, okay? And this is how she was able to get the New York Times to doctor things to make you think that the PR agents were really up to this huge plan to smear her. So we'll look at that. And it says, in the days leading up to the film's release, Mr. Baldoni abruptly pivoted away from the film's marketing plan and the types of publicity activities in which he had previously participated, okay? So this is in early August. What the public did not know was that Mr. Baldoni and his team did so in an effort to explain why many of the film's cast and crew had unfollowed crisis PR mode because you guys orchestrated having a bunch of people unfollow him in the style of your best friend Taylor Swift, and the public noticed and began asking questions, going, what's going on? We're noticing that Blake is not appearing alongside the lead character, Justin Baldoni, and also all these people have unfollowed him. And now you're upset that meant that he had to pivot the PR strategy to rescue his own film that his studio was invested in. Like, again, this is such duh stuff that you're trying to present as something that's nefarious, and it simply isn't. It is another chicken had to come before the egg scenario. You had to stage the mass unfollowing of Justin Baldoni, buying off all of his friends, getting all of them to come to the Deadpool premiere, flying people to Wrexham, getting them to believe in your narrative that you were staging. You created the crisis, and now you're complaining that they had to respond to the crisis. Okay? Does that make any sense? And here's the crazy part. And this is all despite you saying in your own lawsuit that everything had been resolved, right? So who was it, Blake, that led the mass unfollow of Baldoni that created the crisis situation in the first place? Who was it, Blake, who, despite you saying you got everything you wanted, made the decision that you guys could not do any PR together anywhere? Who made that decision? Was it you? Because if it was you, okay, then it's time for you to introduce your actions to your consequences. Hello, action. Hello, consequence. Oh, it's so nice to meet each other. Yeah, the public noticed. The public noticed that things were weird and things began to backfire on you, okay? So number 27 I love because this one was just straight up being done for the TikTokers, okay? Everybody knows that a hot button issue right now is Israel, Palestine, and that TikTokers especially are fired up about this issue, and they have landed on the pro-Palestinian side of the thing. This is why they use the watermelons. And so there was no reason for her to insert this in this amendment, other than I think her trying to appeal, okay, going after Steve Sarowitz and trying to be like, these guys support Israel and look at this language that he uses. This is my personal belief. Like, this was written in here to appeal to TikTokers. She says, and she obviously does not cite a person. This is basically hearsay. She says that Steve Sarowitz made a threat and said, quote, I will protect the studio like Israel protected itself from Hamas. There were 39,000 dead bodies, but there will be 2 dead bodies when I'm done. Attributed to no one. Just drops this in the lawsuit and wants you to know that Steve Sarowitz, she's trying to use this imagery of a very hot button issue, knowing that TikTokers don't like this issue. She's watching my show. She knows for sure where I stand on this issue. And now she's trying to paint Steve Sarowitz like Bibi Netanyahu, I think. And so that was intentionally a little nasty PR tidbit. It's completely irrelevant. What happened in Israel, what's happening in Israel is completely irrelevant to what you and your husband, and potentially with help from Taylor Swift and WME, did to Justin Baldoni, okay? You're not going to persuade us with emotion, okay? Then she gives us 29. This point is amazing because it's the literal definition of public relations, okay? And this is funny because she's saying that they then, in this situation, recognizing that there was a crisis, reached out to the agency group. We knew about this. We knew that he had done this because, like I said, Blake Lively, through her demands, created a PR crisis. By separating the parties, people didn't understand why they weren't together, and they felt that she was being really pompous and arrogant. And then she goes into why they were engaged by revealing the proposal of engaging a PR company. It says a website, full Reddit, full social account takedowns, all social crisis teams on hand for anything, to engage with audiences in the right way, to start threads of theories, to discuss this is the way to be fully 100% protected. All of this will most importantly be untraceable. And then they include a line there that says, Ms. Abel described it. The plan was to engage in social media mitigation and to counter negative as well as social manipulation.
Tell me what you think, guys. Do you agree with Candace?